bring your own device is kind of a interesting idea for teachers. Sometimes it's a trigger that will cause people to be upset that they were expecting the school to provide something or the location. But I'm looking at it as when you're working with the public and you're trying to, in this case, minimize contact as much as possible. So it's better to have them using their own device so that you don't have to worry about cleaning it. So we're going to actually take a look at a few different ways to do that. So we're starting out with QR codes, which you might be like, wait a second, QR codes have been around since 2000s or so. And it's like, yes, but there's this thing called Snapchat, and it kind of resurrected the QR code. We're also going to be looking at 3 different flavors of Google Forms that you can use for interactive activities or data collection from your students, including a few that you're going to get to participate in. Yes, I'm that teacher. I'm requiring lab time. So we're going to wrap up, and based on time, we might just barely get into surveys and quick polls. But these are things that you might already have some experience in. So first up, QR codes. It's a graphic interface that stores information that can be scanned by mobile devices. Previously, Android contained the connection a lot sooner than the Mac and Apple iPhones did. Since then, there's been a bit of a convergence, especially with the prevalence of Snapchat. Now both systems will take pictures, including tablet devices. So I'm hoping no one else is seeing the list of presenters that I'm seeing. I'm just going to stash this away. If you take a moment, you can actually snap a picture of this QR code, and it will take you to my planetarium's website. So when I'm doing activities with public, or if I'm just meeting people wearing the mask, it's very hard to spell out the URL for my website. So I've now printed these onto the back of my business card so they can just snap a picture of it and be able to get to the website. One of those work smarter moments for us. You also have forms. Now forms, forms can come in definitely 3 different flavors: linear, divergent, and collaborative. And I like to take a moment and break each one of them down, because a lot of people have the most experience with linear, but they've actually done divergent before and not known it. And then we'll wrap up with collaborative. First up, the linear. So if you want to take a moment and go ahead and snap a picture of the survey. If you hold your camera up to it to take the picture, it should pop up the URL. And you're going to be presented with Zoom has placed a menu directly on top of one of my windows. Go away. There we go. So you can go ahead and enter in items that you see for your Star Talk. Like during the opening of a Star Talk, I begin with a discussion of, and you can make your selections. And then finally rate the importance of these different items. This is a linear form because you're expecting the person to start at the top and just go straight down. And just because I'm nosy Nelly like that. Ooh, light pollution's got a nice amount. That is the other nice thing I like about using these graphs is you can pull the information pretty quickly from the audience. So when we're looking at when you would use this, right now we're using it in a professional mode. You could also use it with students. Students will generally get a linear survey if you want to start the beginning of an activity to go to the end. Now, we'll go ahead and switch back to the PowerPoint. Divergent. Now, divergent is a different flavor. Divergent is when you want them to answer specific questions. So I give the example. If you ask someone if they prefer cats and dogs and they choose dogs, do you really want your next question to be what breed of cat is their favorite? If you've already established that they're a dog person, you should jump to the dog questions. So I'll give you a moment again. I'll leave the QR code up. I'll move my cursor out of the way so it doesn't randomly trigger and give you a chance to snap the picture for a divergent. Now with a divergent, it'll start with an opening question. In this case, it's asking what is your favorite part of the solar system to present on? Inner planets, outer planets, or small bodies? Sorry, a deer just ran by in front of my window, so kind of squirrel moment. Those responses will actually affect the questions you're going to be asked or in the next phase. Because in the setup of this document, it says if you choose inner planets, it's going to go to the section on inner planets. If you choose outer planets, it'll take you to the outer planets section. Small bodies, same thing. And I did not include an other because we're mainly dealing with the solar system. I was hoping small bodies was going to include asteroids, meteorites, comets, dwarf planets, everything like that. For the people who want to talk about the sun, I'm sorry, I did not include that. So it will jump you specifically to the part of the survey that you wish to answer. So we're going to take a quick moment because we've got a bit of time still. We're good to go at the responses. A pretty good distribution of fans of the inner planets. Of the inner planets, Mars is dominating that group. If you are looking at Earth and the Moon, do you have more? We have so far just a few people who have answered this question. Notice it only says 3 responses. Your pool of responses will vary to the people's answer. So divergent is very good for getting very detailed information, but it might not be your biggest population center. Outer planets, oh, poor Uranus. It's got no likes. And for the small bodies, comets are dominating, which I'm not surprised really with what's going on with having a visible comet right now. But divergent is a good way to, like I said, get that detailed information from your audience or guests if you're willing to not have the biggest data set. If you're okay with just having 3 people talking about their experiences looking at the moon and the Earth, but you're saying, okay, of 3 people, 100% would rather us talk about the moon. That gives you a data point that you can start to manipulate. Now, the last one for us is a bit of fun collaboration. You're going to be split into 4 groups based on your last name. Please only scan the QR code for your group. And what we're going to be looking at is some very, very important information. It is always the first question you privately ask a coworker when you're hired at the planetarium. What is the temperature like in this building? So if your last names are A to F, please scan this QR code. I'll give you, let's see, setting the timer for 17 1/3 seconds, starting now. And yes, you have to do the hair bob. It's required by law. All right, that's time for that group. If your last name is G through L, go ahead and scan this code. Your time starts now. All right, next group, group 3, M to R. And our last group, S to Z. Also, just a teacher classroom management thing. If you're going to time the students and provide them an opportunity to do something, don't pick an easily divisible number within the minute. So that's why I did 13 1/3. If you were to pick just 15 seconds, the kids will actually sometimes count that in their head. So you lose a little fudge factor, where if you put a number that's not something that they can have experienced before, then it tends to trigger them to have a little bit more of a drive for completion. So let's go ahead and take a look at the spreadsheet for this. And the nice thing about these forms is when you're setting up your form, you can have it choose a destination. So that's exactly what I did. I had this chart, choose a destination, and it made a tile for each one of our groups, A through F, G and L, MR, and SZ. If you played around with Excel or other spreadsheet applications, you know that data can be moved between charts pretty easily. So what I've gone through is I wanted to create a table that includes the information for what the temperature was at breakfast yesterday, noon yesterday, 6 p.m., sunset, the current room temperature, breakfast tomorrow, noon tomorrow, 6 p.m. tomorrow, and sunset. These all reference those specific questions or lines within the chart. So the kind of cool thing is all your information is now getting propagated together. And you can, of course, route that into a chart. So this one, I didn't arrange it the way I'd like to. If I had a little bit better timing, I would have placed current room toward one of the ends, but I want current room to be temporally in the middle. So it also gives you your minimum temperature, your average, and your highs. So we have some pretty high temperatures of just under 100, which for me would be a teachable moment. Because in the question, it asks for Celsius. So if my students are saying 100 Celsius, I know, oh, we probably need to address a quick moment and do some correction of information. So we're going to swap back to the PowerPoint. The advantage of collaboration is it makes it so you can collect a lot of data really quickly. I have a lab that I do with my students called the Daytime Lab. And you're finding the total hours of daylight for 24 days spread out throughout the year for 5 locations on the planet. Quick math tells you that's 120 data points. On average, a middle schooler to collect 120 data points will take 83 minutes. And I don't know how long your students can focus, but that's a long time to be focusing. It allows us to kind of bring it together quickly. So by collaborating, we're able to break the data points down into 10 groups. And those 10 groups data all feeds into one spreadsheet. I've saved a few data points from the last time we did this lab. I give them all the dates for Omaha, or all the times for Omaha for each one of the dates. And that gives us our nice sustained day and night time. But this gives you some of the data points on the extremes. The students can start filling it in, just like with the temperature one where we had the 100 Fahrenheit versus 100 Celsius issue. If you have suddenly a jump in the line where it's not smooth, that becomes a teachable moment so you can address and look for those lost little data points. Now, I've been trying to keep everything kind of middle of the road technology-wise. QR codes in the documentation that came with this presentation includes some of the techniques you can use to make QR codes. The company I work for has a G Suite account, which has a plugin built in that lets me make automatically QR codes. I didn't want to tie people into feeling they have to have this specific program. So in surveys and quick polls, I tried to give you as much option as I could. So here I've listed 4 of them that I've used in the past: Canvas, Blackboard, Poll Everywhere, SurveyMonkey. 2 of the other companies have now been absorbed into other companies and don't quite meet the goals that we're kind of looking for. And we're using, for this one, SMS, simple text message. And yes, you legally are supposed to include rates and limits will apply. And Poll Everywhere. So hopefully, if I didn't break the internet, this should work. I fear I broke the internet. And yes, Patty, there in the documentation for this, I include some really good web tutorials. So it should help you out. And Bo, Texas hot, 40, yes. That's just a yes. When you find an armadillo melted on the side of the road, it's Texas hot. All right, I'm gonna see if it'll let me see people without going crazy. Can I get a thumbs up if the text was able to go through from you? All right, I got a couple of thumbs up. So the nice thing about these quick polls is, for one thing, if you're a teacher, a lot of them have free teacher accounts. They're limited to about 40 people. You can have 40 submissions. The yearly ones, if you want to talk with your administrator and see about getting a building account, we've had that before at the Science Center. We had a building account for Poll Everywhere. And the only thing we found, we couldn't have two teachers using it the same day at the same time. It worked best if we split everyone up a little bit. So that is one of the little tricks we have found. But it's also pretty tech friendly because it gives you the web option. You can go in by web address, you can go in by a QR code, or you can just use a text message. So I gave myself enough time just in case there were going to be questions, and I'm scrolling down. Okay, Michelle, yours is not liking doing it. With the number of people in the room, because there are over 40 participants, there is a strong chance that it may have reached the limit for the session. So I'm going to stop sharing and go in and clear out a few of my previous submissions. All right, so if you received an error earlier, go ahead and give it a try now, or resubmit the code. In fact, I'll give you the link. All right, try this. I think it might be happy now. I sent to the chat a quick URL. So as more answers are coming in, the larger the word, the more times it has occurred. So right now, Orion is popular. Still pretty popular. Oh, Orija. That always starts such a lovely debate on how to actually pronounce that constellation's name. And Mike, it honestly depends on whether the two words together or apart. It sometimes will run them as understand that there's a space in the middle, other times not. I was thinking with the number of constellations are to name that it will make it so that it'll run them as one word. But this turns into a fun activity if you're doing it with students and you've just finished our first tour of the solar system. And you have them you ask them what their favorite planet is. And then it just adds in. So you can start seeing their constellation of experience. You can also use it as a pre-teach moment and have them look at misconceptions and BYODs. Definitely middle schooler there. I know if I turn the camera on for some people, someone is going to be laughing on this. I just know it. But going to give us a chance to open this up for questions. Let me stop sharing so I can see your smiling faces again. Michelle, stop sticking your tongue out at me. You have detention. So if you have any questions about this, oh yeah, I can, when I use these in class, it's mostly as either starters or wrap-up activities, especially like the short text ones. It gives me that last chance to catch misconceptions before they walk out the door. Or it gives me a chance to see what they're walking in the door with. Because it's scary how if you're listening to half a story on something that's even scientifically accurate, you can still get off onto a wrong tangent. Especially with and then going to the forms, like the collaborative forms. I gave you the example of the daytime lab that I use with the students. The other time we use this that's been pretty successful is dealing with finding gravity, where you have students dropping weights from specific heights. You want a lot of data points for that, but you don't generally have a lot of time. So it gives you that extra little chance to say like, okay, we need to collect 200 data points and you have 20 minutes and go, which generally causes a middle schooler's head to explode, which is messy. Very, very messy. So with the text, it was supposed to give you a text question that you were to click, then be able to respond in with a text. Unfortunately, we hit that 40-person class size because there are so many people in the room right now, and it wasn't letting me chop off anyone. You're all too loved. But that is 2:30.